This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Welcome to Jumping Bomb Audio.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Jumping Bomb Audio, a podcast all about Joshi Pro Wrestling. I'm Aaron, and I am joined by a hurting Indiana fan. It's Taylor.
Yes, hurting, but still enjoying March Madness. The start of March Madness this week. I've been double screening all week, so I've had basketball on one screen and Joshi wrestling on another. Really putting down the content, as they say. Getting the content into my brain. So it's been a fun and good week. Lots going on.
I have not really watched any of it. I turned on. Okay, so as you probably know, Taylor, Kentucky, the winningest basketball program of all time. But I think if Kansas wins the title, they would pass Kentucky because Kentucky won 9 games this year. So I turned on the Kansas game because they were losing. And fulfilled a theory of mine that nothing good can happen in my life. And so, like, all the teams I hated lost, but I didn't watch. And then I turned on the Kansas game, and they came back and won. So, not watching anymore.
I often get that feeling where I won't be watching something, it's happening the way I hope it will happen. So I go, oh, this is great. Either my team is winning or a team I don't like is losing. And the minute I turn it on, it switches, and it's like what's that scientific theory where if you look at something, it changes? I don't know what it is. I'm not a scientist, but there's a theory that if you look at something, it changes the state of it. And that's my theory, is that whenever I turn on a game that I want one result in, the minute I start looking at it, the result changes to what I don't want. But I have enjoyed watching because usually I would be in the office working during March Madness, and I work in an office that is not a lot of fans of March Madness work there, so people don't really talk about it. It's not watched. It's not one of those offices where like it's on a big screen and people watch it together. So I don't often get the opportunity to watch a lot of games, and I've gotten the opportunity this year because I'm working from home. So it has been a lot of fun to really. I think I've seen almost every game that has aired.
What I really respect about us, Taylor, is we were talking about basketball before we hit record. I said, I'm not sure our listeners really care about basketball, and then we did 5 minutes on it anyway. So you have to respect it.
Yeah. You know, that's what's happening. You asked me how I am, and I told you that's what I've been doing this week. You know, watching Stardom and Baylor basketball.
the two things closest to God.
Two great tastes that go great together.
Is it? How's the weather in New York City this week?
It hasn't been bad. It's been on the chilly side, although I think today it's like 50 in the 50s. Somewhat. So it's sort of, we're moving into spring weather, but we haven't quite gotten there. We've had a couple days recently that have been in the 30s and 40s. But pretty soon it will be the few weeks of time in New York where it's not insanely cold or incredibly brutally hot, where it's very nice to walk outside. So I'm looking forward to that very short 3-week window of time.
Yeah, it's almost 70 here today, so it's very nice. I sat out in the yard for a little bit before we recorded, and it really improved my mood. But yeah, we have a similar thing in Kentucky where it's like spring is about, I don't know, 3 weeks long. Fall is about 3 weeks long. And the rest of the time is summer and winter. So, yes, I'm looking forward. But, it's been so cold that I don't mind if it's really hot. So anyway, basketball talk and weather talk. That's how we got this kicked off. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at JBombAudio. I'm at Aaron Like the Car. Taylor's at Tay Mainbow. You can subscribe to the show by just searching Jumping Bomb Audio on the podcast app of your choice, hitting subscribe, get these episodes as soon as they come out, generally every other Monday. I mean, I think that's how we've done it. Maybe one episode came out on a Tuesday, I think. But other than that, they all come out on Mondays. If you use the Apple Podcast app, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. And if you'd like to donate to the show, you can do so by going to redcircle.com/shows/jumping-bomb-audio. Taylor, we, I think, are going to have a sponsor soon.
Yes, that is the
don't say what it is. We don't want to get free advertising.
Yes, they're not our sponsor yet. It's not, I guess, not officially pen to paper yet, so we don't want to say it. But yes, it is looking likely. So I'm looking forward to that. I've never done a podcast with an ad on it before, so that will be a first for me.
Well, maybe I'll slough the ad read off onto you.
I'll find a great segue. We'll be talking about actress girls, and I'll figure out a great segue. You won't even see it coming.
I look forward to it. Okay, here's what we're going to do on this show. Well, the major things, obviously, if you're a normal listener, a regular listener, kind of the broad outlines of our shows. The main show that we're going to talk about to dive into is the SEAdLINNG show from Korakuen Hall from March 17th with the Get a Dream tournament on it and the big match for the vacant Beyond the Sea title. We'll get into, of course, in our Spark Notes segment, the other stuff that's been going on. And our big preview will be of the April 4th Yokohama Cinderella Stardom show. And we've also solicited questions from our listeners. So we've got a decent amount of questions here that we'll get into at the end of the show. But let's get it started with the SEAdLINNG show from Korakuen Hall, March 17th. Taylor, overall, your thoughts on this show, your big takeaways.
I thought it was a fun enough show. I think it was hurt by some circumstances of Yoshiko's injury. Obviously, she was not on the show. There's still this state of emergency in Japan, I think, for at least a little while longer. It was a weekday show, so there wasn't a huge crowd there. It was 325 people total. But I think overall, it was a quick show. Nothing overstayed its welcome. The longest match was only 13 and a half minutes long. So it was very easy breezy. I remember I opened up the file and it was like 2 hours on the dot. And the show didn't even really start. The first in-ring match didn't even start till I think about half an hour in. So really a very quick show. But I think it was, a fun show, not SEAdLINNG's, best show that they've ever had, but, easy to get through. And for me, had one really strong match which I think really helped sort of lift the whole show.
Yeah, it was definitely an easy watch. I mean, as you said, very short runtime. And, you in these, the tag tournament matches until the final, they were all 10-minute time limit. So they all went by pretty quickly. Everything went pretty fast as far as like the pace inside of the matches inside the ring were all pretty fast. So yeah, it's definitely an easy, enjoyable show to watch. I had a slightly different take on the match I think you're talking about, but we'll get into that. But let's just start from the very first match in the Get a Dream tournament, first round. We kicked it off with Hiroyo Matsumoto and Itsuki Aoki versus Ayame Sasamora and Kaho Kobayashi. And this went to a time limit draw, something we are very fond of here on Jumping Bomb Audio.
Yeah, I didn't mind the time limit draw here. I think it was used, obviously they were tight on time because of the as I mentioned, because of the state of emergency. So I don't mind this. It actually sort of caught me off surprise when the time limit draw happened, because I had forgotten that the time limit for these opening matches was 10 minutes. I don't really have too much to say about it. I thought it was a fine opening match, but nothing really stood out to me all that strongly. So overall, I think fine. I was more sort of interested in the fact that, with the time limit draw, that Makoto and Riko Kaiju went through. Honori Hana and Riko Kawahata went through to the finals. So a little bit of friendly booking there to get, sort of a younger team into the finals, which I thought was a good decision.
I really enjoyed this match a lot. Kaho Kobayashi, of course, pretty much always stands out, but I just loved how she really carried this match early on. Lots of energy. Her athleticism was on display. Then you had Hiroyo come in toward the end and pick it up with similar energy, but like in a more physical way. So it gave they were able to include a lot in these 10 minutes, I thought, like from a perspective of like doing different things. But it's hard to keep a fast pace, keep your energy high, but also keep it fresh and interesting for the whole time. And I thought they did a great job of that in the way that they used Kobayashi early in the match, Matsumoto late in the match. So I just really loved it. I hadn't been thinking about it, but when I heard, luckily from my very brilliant Japanese learning, when the announcer said "Ippon," I knew what was going on. But that's a joke. But I like this a lot more than you did, I believe. That's okay. The next Get a Dream tournament first round match, Chikayo Nagashima and Tsukushi Haruka defeated Arisa Nakajima and Nanai Takahashi, and we had Tsukushi pin Nanai, which I thought was a big deal.
Yeah, an interesting match. It was contested under high-speed rules, which I think was a good sort of wrinkle to give the high-speed team an advantage against the current tag champions. And I thought this was a really fun match. I thought all of the high-speed, as we'll talk about shortly, I thought all the high-speed teams, high-speed goon matches were fun. Obviously, Tsukushi, one of my favorites. I think she's really great, really brings the energy in all her matches, and is exactly the type of perfect person for this sort of situation where you're doing these matches and they got to be fast and they got to have energy and you got to get everything in. So I really enjoyed it, and I was a little bit surprised by the result too, which I think was fun. So I overall thought this was a really great match.
Well, I don't enjoy these matches as much as you do, which is fine. It definitely was a good way to mix things up a little bit. I thought that was one of the downfalls of the tournament, in that it's kind of hard to do a lot of different stuff in 10-minute matches, but I thought they all were kind of worked in a pretty similar style. And I think that made it, by the time you get to the final match, you're like, okay. Now it was nice, at least in the finals, you had a new team that we hadn't seen yet. But other than that, you're watching Nagashima and Tsukushi wrestle 3 times and wrestle a pretty similar style. So I think that hurt the tournament aspect of the show a little bit.
Yeah, I think I sort of got more invested in the sort of the storyline of, for example, in this match, they were doing the high-speed rules. They got this advantage to help them beat the team. Then in the next match that they had against Makoto and Riko Kaiju, Tsukushi comes out at the beginning and says, "Oh, this should be under high-speed rules." And they go, "Nope, and it's not under high-speed rules." And to me, at that point, I thought, okay, so this is the way to give this team a loss, because they could say, well, we're a high-speed team and it wasn't under high-speed rules. And that's why we lost. But then, of course, they won, which was really surprising. So I feel like I was sort of more invested in the sort of story, the sort of overarching story of this team, beating the champions in their own type of match, then being forced into a regular match, still winning, and getting to the finals. So I can see that. And I guess the other thing was, as we said, none of these matches were all that long. It isn't like they were having multiple, 20. If they were multiple 20-minute matches that all felt the same, I think that would be a little different. But these were pretty quick, especially that third match, which was only less than 7 minutes long. So, I think I was a little higher on it than you were.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just being nitpicky. It wasn't like, oh, God, this show is awful or whatever. It was a good show. It was just, if I was thinking of ways to have made it better, that is one way I could have thought of it. But yeah, as you mentioned, Nagashima and Tsukushi defeated Makoto and Riko Kaiju. Tsukushi pinned Riko. So Tsukushi has both the pinfalls so far. Do you have anything else to say about that match?
No, that's all. As I said, it was pretty short, so not too much to say about it.
And then they finally get a brief respite, the Nagashima Tsukushi team, to rest up before the finals. And we had the match for the Beyond the Sea, the vacant Beyond the Sea title. Of course, as Taylor mentioned earlier, Yoshiko injured, out for a while. So they had to vacate the title. And the match to decide the new champion was contested between Asuka and Rina Yamashita. And in another pretty short match, Asuka gets the win and is your new Beyond the Sea champion.
Yeah, I thought this was a really great match. I really enjoyed it. Obviously, not too long. It was only 13:30, so not really an epic encounter, but I thought it was really strong. One thing that really stood out to me in this match was, obviously, we've talked about week in and week out, how good Asuka is. Talked a lot about her offense, but I thought that she really bumped really well for Rina in this match. She took one early. I don't even remember what move it was on, but then she took a clothesline or a lariat late in the match and sort of flipped around that looked really, really good. So, really well-rounded. We talk about Asuka getting better all the time, and I think that's another aspect of her game that is continuing to improve, her ability to make her opponent look good as well. So really a match I really enjoyed. I was enjoying it. They had those the headbutt spots at the end, which really sort of bumped it up another notch for me. So overall, I thought it was a really great match, super fun, didn't overstay its welcome. I went 4.25 stars, so I really enjoyed it.
I think it's just a me thing about this match. I thought it was a very good match. I've just kind of, and this wasn't that long, so, it didn't stick around too long to make me dislike it for sure. But I've just kind of fallen out of love with these, 50-50 back and forth, go to war matches. I've just been in a mood, I guess, where I want some, longer heat segments or something, more than just, hit my big move, you hit your big move, and let's just keep doing that until one of us wins, which is a fine thing, and sometimes it really fits the story of the match. But that's really all my criticism of the matches. They were both great. I love Asuka's fake dive, where she feints diving but flips back into the middle of the ring. When she came up, though, speaking of basketball talk, I thought she was going to do the Antoine Walker shimmy, and I was pretty disappointed that she didn't.
Antoine Walker is very, very over in Japan, so I'm surprised that didn't happen.
Yeah. He was really a cultural icon in Japan, so I couldn't decide. Frankly, I just thought the Antoine Walker thing would pop you, but I couldn't decide between whether she was going to do the Antoine Walker shimmy or the Bernie dance. Are you familiar with the Bernie?
What is the Bernie? No, what is the Bernie dance? I might be familiar with it, but maybe not by the name the Bernie dance.
Well, it's from Weekend at Bernie's.
Oh no, I've never seen Weekend at Bernie's. So
okay, well you don't have to have seen Weekend at Bernie's, but there was a popular. I don't know if it was popular. There was a rap song. God, it might have been 10 years ago at this point, and I think it's called "Do It Like Bernie." Moving Like Bernie is the name of the song. Okay, do you know the idea of Weekend at Bernie's?
Yeah, it's that they have the dead guy in the wheelchair that they pretend he's not dead, right? They pretend he's alive.
Right. Yes, they're pretending Bernie is alive. So the dance is like, well, there's a scene in the movie where he like kind of dances. And so the dance is like, imagine if you were dead but dancing. Anyway, that's all. Those are my thoughts on the match.
Good cap of that match recap.
That's all. Was this new gear for Asuka?
I think it was. I haven't seen I think at least parts of it were old gear. I think the sort of, I don't know how to describe it, the top part of it may have been new, but it may have been just new stuff over other stuff she usually wears. But I don't think I've seen it before. I don't know if it is 100% new, if she's worn it anywhere else, but it was the first time I had seen it.
I like gear. I'm a gear guy. And I was like, oh, cool new gear from Asuka. Asuka's so cool. That's like my favorite thing about her. She just comes off as very cool.
Yeah, and for a big, for a big match for the title that she won, good to, get a little gear boost, make it feel like a big deal.
For sure. Yeah, so Asuka's your new Beyond the Sea champion. Good move, I think. And presumably gives us an Asuka Yoshiko match down in the future.
I mean, yeah, you would think that would be the first match that they, well, maybe not the very first match, but one of the first matches they do when Yoshiko comes back would be that match. So yeah, that would be great. And of course, she's got other, she can go back up against Arisa. They had that good match back in June of last year. That match was really strong, so they can run that back again, maybe to get Asuka, a victory or two before, if she drops it back to Yoshiko when Yoshiko returns, give her one or two wins to make her look good. And that could be one of them. So looking forward to it. As I mentioned on this show, we're big fans of Asuka, so Asuka doing well it will make us happy.
And I don't think they've had a singles match before, Asuka and Yoshiko. So
I would have to look. Well, I don't recall one off the top of my head.
I've pulled it up on Cage Match. I found a three-way with Asuka, Arisa, and Yoshiko. And they certainly have been in tag matches against each other. But I don't think they've had a singles match against each other. So that would be very cool.
That could be building to it, a big match that hopefully they could get some. They had 325 for this show. It was a weekday show with the state of emergency and no Yoshiko. It was a little disappointing. You would hope that they would have more people. But hopefully they'll be able to build some momentum because I think they're doing a lot of really great stuff. The show wasn't a, all-time great show, but I think it was really fun. And I think they've established a lot of, personalities, not only challenging for titles, but also sort of up and down the card. You have sort of these, groupings of people, moving around, switching. You had Riko Kaiju going into the Selfish Strawberries and things like that. So I think it's a fun promotion that has a lot of momentum behind it booking-wise. It's just the question of getting people into the buildings to see the shows.
So they're running a lot of these shows on SEAdLINNG Live, right? So yeah. Is that also the only way that people can watch these in Japan?
They may
also airing.
They may be. TV. I don't know if any of them are airing because I know the way it used to be is mainly that they were airing the shows on either Nico or they were airing on Samurai, like the bigger shows would air on Samurai and get video, their Korakuen Halls and things like that. I mean, it may be a thing. I don't think they've been on Nico recently unless I've missed it. And I don't know that they've been on, I think they've been on Samurai maybe once recently. But it may be a thing where they're doing this and they're, the monetarily maybe they're seeing all the, money themselves, or they're getting more a portion of the money, so it's more worth to them to air the shows there, as well as being able to air more of the shows. Because I know in the past, even when they were airing on Nico or Samurai, there would be some shows that just wouldn't, make air. It was just a show where you're like, whoa, we hope this one goes on Nico or Samurai, and sometimes it didn't happen. It was usually sort of the smaller shows that they ran. But I think SEAdLINNG Live is a very easy system to use. It's very easy to log on, find what you need, pay, internationally, which has been an issue with some other streaming services. So, I'm all for it. It enables us to see. I don't think we've missed a SEAdLINNG show in quite a while. So I'm more than happy for them to keep running on SEAdLINNG Live.
I was just wondering if it's making it slightly less accessible to their fans, and so if that affects their attendance in any way, but no idea really, obviously.
Yeah, and I don't know how they're doing. I mean, I know they've done some outreach, based on Yoshiko being on TikTok. I think they had a promotion at one show a couple of months ago that was, I think younger people under 18 or something got in for free, or, you could bring a friend or something like that. So they're clearly trying to reach out to that sort of market, those sort of people. I think younger fans as opposed to sort of older, longtime joshi fans, which may take longer to get those people interested, to get those people watching, just based on, following someone on TikTok,
For sure. Yeah, it's a lot easier to watch a TikTok than it is to go out to Korakuen Hall or whatever. Okay, the main event, the Get a Dream tournament final match. Honori Hana and Riko Kawahata win the tournament by defeating Chikayo Nagashima and Tsukushi Haruka. And as I flip over to my notes, Honori got the pin. She rolled up Tsukushi.
Yeah, big win for the young team here. I like this match. I sort of like the grouping of Riko Kawahata and Honori Hana and Yumiko Hoda. I think it's sort of a fun team, interesting, not like a lot of the other things going on in SEAdLINNG. Big win for Honori Hana as we continue to sort of see how these rookies, these first SEAdLINNG rookies, will be handled in terms of their positioning on the card. For Honori Hana, it's now been about 15 months or so. Now, of course, SEAdLINNG didn't run for a number of those months because of the COVID stuff. But, we're getting into, the era where she may start getting pushed. She may start, getting these sort of big featured wins, a win in the main event in a tournament on a show. So, and I'm really happy that they've brought in Riko Kawahata. I think she's really great. I think she fits really well with the promotion. I hope she sticks around, whether they end up, just bringing her in sort of as a, guest spot, or if possibly they sign her to a contract and she becomes another member of the roster. We'll see. But yeah, I really liked it. Thought it was fun and a good cap to the tournament.
Yeah, I thought Kawahata really stood out in the match. She was very good. Enjoyed her a lot. But probably my favorite moment of the match was Tsukushi had Honori Hana in the ropes and did the thing where you drop kick the person through the ropes, but she missed, barely hit her. So then she just turned around and slapped Honori Hana instead. Really cracked me up. So that means I enjoyed it. If you make me really laugh at one point in a match, then I'm probably going to like your match, basically.
So that's the key, is make Aaron laugh.
Yeah, do something really goofy that just cracks me up. And I'm going to either that or put each other's lives at risk. Those are the two things that I really like in wrestling. All right. That was the SEAdLINNG March 17th show. Any other thoughts before we move on to Spark Notes?
No, fun show. Another good show for SEAdLINNG. And yeah.
All right. Well, what's been going on elsewhere around the Joshi world?
So Stardom has had a few shows. They had a few shows this weekend. Those shows aren't up yet on Stardom World, so I haven't seen any of those. They had the Korakuen Hall show, which had just happened when we taped our last episode, so we hadn't seen it. I watched it all. The 313, the 314 shows mostly set up for the big 4-4 Yokohama show. Himika and Maika defending their tag titles against Mina Shirakawa and Sayaka Nagi. And the artist match on the Korakuen, really the title matches with both champions retaining. It was largely, nothing really huge happening, but a lot of setup. They set up this Oedo Tai Stars 5-on-5 elimination match. But this is all stuff we'll talk about in the preview coming up for the 4-4 show. So, as I said, largely just setup happening there.
This feels like a good time to tell this story, Taylor. I hate to tell too many of these stories, but it's funny. So, as you know, studying Japanese, and my teacher has lately decided that a good way for me to learn or to work on listening is she wants me to did I talk about this last time? Pick out promos from Joshi shows?
So we didn't talk about it, but you messaged me and you said, what are good promos for me to use for this studying exercise?
Right. Well, however many lessons ago, she found a video on YouTube that was building up to the Tom Julia match. And so there was a promo from after the tag match where Tom got the pinfall, and so she's like, oh, let's listen to this, and we went through it. But anyway, so they're harder to come across than you think, because it's well, I can't pick one off Stardom World because then I've got to explain how to log into this website and how to find this match, so I just found one on YouTube, and it was the one from after the Mayu Yoshiko match. But the punchline here is we're going through Mayu's part of this promo, and my teacher is she's like, wow, I'm really surprised. This Mayu, the level of Japanese she uses is an elementary to middle school level. So that was very funny, I thought. She would just leave out verbs sometime, do sentences with no verbs. You just kind of have to guess what she was getting at. Or a funny thing was she pretty much always speaks very casually, which is my understanding is that would be normal. But she randomly threw in this apparently insanely formal word for today, which you would normally just say ko. But she said honjitsu, which is apparently the most formal possible version of the word, just thrown in among all her very casual speech. So very funny.
Yes, I sent. Did you? So I'm assuming you didn't end up. I sent you that All Japan women's training video. I'm assuming you didn't use that one.
Well, I've been using, at my teacher's suggestion, post-match promos because the wrestlers are very tired, so they speak more slowly. So it's easier for me to hear and listen to.
I see. Well, and my struggle was, even on Stardom World, if you find some of these promos, they're all subtitled. So unless you're going to sort of block the bottom of the screen, right, they're already sort of written out. And I did find a video, I think, as I was looking and thinking after you messaged me, I found one of All Japan promos, but they were also subtitled. So I was like, well, I don't want to send this to you with them already subtitled, because that's sort of what you're trying to do, and that would defeat the purpose to have the English sitting right there. So I did send them to you.
Somewhat, yes, but I'm also some of the Japanese I don't know, the words they're using or whatever, and so
right.
kind of learning things, but it's really more of basically, I think, we've been doing this for about 9 months. And I think she's just thinking, well, for the reasons I want to learn Japanese are not like, maybe I don't need as much of the formal stuff that comes from some of the books, that you study from. So she's like, maybe it would be more useful to me to learn like the weird shit wrestlers say, I guess, essentially.
She's trying to get on your level. She's like, how do I get through to this guy?
Yes. How can I possibly get him to learn anything? She also told me she's just been like, just for fun. Obviously, now that she's looked up some of these videos, she's getting a lot more recommendations on YouTube for like joshi videos. And she said she's just been watching some just to try to have more of an idea of I guess, what I'm rambling on about during our lessons. It's a real Aaron shut the fuck up challenge that I'm failing. But it's like we're watching this promo and she's like, this was a very emotional speech. And I'm like, well, and so I have to tell her like the history of Yoshiko leaving Stardom and whatnot. It's like, I didn't really need to tell her that. I could just shut up. It would be better probably.
Yes, but now
anyway.
she knows the history of the last 5 years of joshi wrestling.
Yes, she does. Well, it helped a little bit because, at things they're saying, she's like, oh, okay, now I see like what the point was of this. But the first thing was like Mayu says something about SEAdLINNG, and she's like, what is that? What does that mean? Like, let me tell you. Anyway, that's my little story. But carry on, Taylor.
Yeah, so that's it for Stardom. Tokyo Joshi just had a show today, I think. I haven't seen it. I don't think it was not a major show, and it just happened. Sendai Girls had two very interesting shows on March 11th and March 12th. As we talked about last episode, Meiko Satomura returned to Sendai Girls on the 11th. She returned. She had a singles match with Dash Chizako, and she beat her. Meiko comes back, gets that win, gets her win back from, I guess, losing to Kaylee Ray in NXT UK. She also won the following night in a tag match with Kaoru, beating Chihiro Hashimoto and Manami. On a show that had 4 matches and had 2 time limit draws in 4 matches. So the time limit draw really is taking off in Joshi wrestling in popularity.
Is there a big Sendai Girls defense squad out there of like why it's good actually that Meiko came back and beat Dasha then left?
I don't know. There is, I think a lot of people. I think when the in-ring stuff is good, it can sort of cover up. A couple years ago, like when Sari was won the title from Chihiro. During that time when she was like the biggest deal in Joshi wrestling, I think a lot of it was like, wow, Sendai Girls is great because these they're putting together these matches that are really good. And at that point you can sort of go, the booking still back then wasn't all that strong, but you can sort of go, oh, well, the booking's not great, but these matches are really great. And you just watch the matches. Of course, now, their roster is sort of thinned out. Meiko's not there all the time. They've had some injuries and things. And so now there's really less of the defense of, oh, well, the booking's bad. Not even the defense, but sort of like I can watch Sendai Girls because even if the booking isn't great, I can still enjoy the matches. Now the matches aren't really, lighting the Joshi world on fire, and the booking is still very confusing and not really sensical. So I think it's sort of a double, but I think when people talk about this, like, oh, this booking is bad, a lot of people say, well, yeah, if they could get some good matches in the ring, that can sort of cover for their issues, but that is happening less. Also hurt by the fact, Meiko wins the next night in a tag match, and I believe that she went back in the next few days, so she is already back in the UK already. So winning and immediately leaving certainly doesn't seem to help anyone, except maybe Meiko. I would assume that Meiko would be back for the Gaia show at the end of April, but we will. I guess we'll have to see about that. So sort of an odd pair of shows for Sendai girls there. In a little bit more exciting news, P's League and Ice Ribbon has continued. Sadly, now Ishikawa has dropped out, so her remaining opponents have each gotten 2 points in the league. A block, I believe, if I have this correct, Yuki Mashiro is now in the lead in the A block with 4 points, followed by Itsuki Aoki with 3. And in the B block, Honori Hana is in first with 4 points, followed by Rina Shingaki with 2 points, and Satsuko Totoro also with 2 points. So that continues on. Sad to see Ishikawa have to drop out, but a fun tournament. Also, Aaron, we mentioned it last time, but we hadn't seen it. The Sakushi Thekla IWGQ title match from February 23rd in Yokohama is on Nico now. I think for at least another few days it will be on Nico. I know we both watched it. I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I tweeted about it on our Twitter account. A short match, but I thought they really filled it with action. I thought they both looked really good. A really good match from Thekla. Of course, a great match from Sakushi. What did you think about it, Aaron?
Yeah, I thought it kicked ass. I loved Thekla going absolute fiend mode with her fiendish actions. And Sakushi just getting pissed off about it and just stomping the piss out of her completely out of the ring. So, I mean, you just have to love that. I also loved the way, they did, a classic like flash pin sequence where they were all real close, and then they did some more near falls leading up to the finish. But Thekla got I thought she did a great job of getting across that she was less and less able to kick out of things, leading directly to the finish. So I thought that was like a nice little nuance that she really nailed. So I loved it. I went 4 stars on it.
Yeah, I was a little bit higher. I went 4 1/4, but a really strong match. And I think that Ice Ribbon has done a really good job. Now they have IWGQ, which came back, the Fantast Ice, which they added last year, along with, the Triangle Ribbon, and of course the Ice Infinity title. And I think they've done a really good job putting these titles in positions where they're all unique, but they all get chances to shine and they all get chances to really show different parts of the roster strength. So I think they've done a really good job in highlighting all of these different titles, even as they've added, more titles than they've had recently. So definitely worth checking out over on Nico proper. Also, another title match, which just happened yesterday, so neither of us have seen it. The Rebel and Enemy team of Maya Yukihi and Maika Ozaki defeated Satsuki Totoro and Itsuki Aoki, successfully defending their titles. So that is that's one I hope to check out soon, because sounds like a great match. I've really liked the title reign of the Rebel and Enemy team. So that is Ice Ribbon, and we'll talk about. They've got some big stuff coming up, so we will talk about that in the in the preview. Diana had 2 dojo shows in the last 2 weeks, which was really great. On the 3/13 one, Haruka Umasaki was taking on X, which turned out to be a mass wrestler named Hope, and Hope wrestled a lot like Miyuki Takase, and at the end of the match, the mask came off, and it was Miyuki Takase. So a little bit of Luminous explodes there in the first one. And then Hope returned just today for Diana's second dojo show against Madeline, but this time it was not Miyuki Takase underneath the mask of Hope. It was Asuka, who had a really fun match with Madeline. Luminous also had a tag match, the second match, a Luminous tag match. So overall, I thought it was a really strong show. just aired a few hours ago. So we're checking out on the Diana YouTube. Actress Girls had a show on March 17th. Saki beat me for the Colors title. That was the big news from that. Also, Actress Girls uploaded all of their February shows to the Actress Girls streaming service. It looks at this point like they are going to upload a full month of shows sometime in the middle of the next month. We're in the middle of March and they just uploaded February. So we're subscribing to, if you want to catch up to Actress Girls, they upload all their shows there. It's very easy to use, to sign up for. The video quality is very good. So I recommend that if you want to see some Actress Girls.
If you're wondering, Taylor, I can't find that me and you have ever wrestled in the same match.
Yeah, that would be well, and you is just returning from her injury, so maybe that possibility will arise.
Oh God, I hope so.
In Wave, Itsuki Aoki and Rin Katakura defeated Mio Momono and Sakura Hirota at a show on March 14th. And then the other big news from the world of Joshi, just yesterday, Kaori Yonoyama defeated Leon to win the Pure J title, so she is the new Pure J champion. She has a defense coming up very soon, which we'll talk about in the previews for the upcoming weeks. And also, Akari retained the Princess of Pro Wrestling title against Manami. So 2 title matches on that Pure J show.
All right. Well, that's the stuff that's been going on, but I guess it's time to talk about the stuff that's coming up over the next couple of weeks. We can kick it off with Stardom. They've got a few shows rather, heading up into the big April 4 show. They'll be at Korakuen on March 26th. They've been building up this Artist of Stardom title match with the Cosmic Angels versus Queen's Quest. And then they'll be in Osaka for day and night shows on the 28th. The day show has the high speed title with Natsupoi taking on Starlight Kid in round 1 of the unit tournament. And then the night show is going to have the winner and losers match of the unit tournament.
Yeah,
and then we will head in. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Some interesting title. I'm interested to see how that Korakuen does with really just the Artist title as the big match. There, in between they had a Korakuen on the 7th, a big show on March 3rd, and they have a big show on April 4th. So a lot of big shows going on. We'll be interested to see how the crowd looks for that one.
Be careful talking about those crowd numbers. Okay. April 4th, Yokohama Cinderella. They'll be at Yokohama Budokan. I'm trying. Let's start at the bottom, I guess. No, let's start at the top. Goddess of Stardom title. The tag titles are on the line. I know there was a question about this, so I guess we'll answer it now. But yeah, Maika and Himeka defending against Julia and Shuri. What do you think about this one, Taylor?
I think it should be a strong match. 4 very talented competitors in a main event in a big spot. Interesting to see Julia back up at the top of the card so quick. It certainly seemed, from my viewpoint, having, I didn't see the Korakuen at first, the 3-7 Korakuen, but all the talk was, Julia, is sort of starting from the bottom again to prove herself. And then, of course, this match was announced, but I did see the Korakuen. There wasn't really a lot of talk from Julia about, I have to prove myself. A lot of her promo before the match was just sort of like, I've had this setback and I'm going to get back out there and, prove myself. So I'm not totally against, her being back in the main event so quick. I think it might have been a little bit more of an interesting story for her to sort of work her way back up. But this is also a roster that is, they're running a lot of big shows. They ran a huge show at the beginning of March. They're running another big show in April, they have all of these Korakuens that they're running, and it's really a roster in terms of size and the need to have title matches and have big draws and get the crowds in, where I don't know that they could afford to have Julia, hanging around the bottom of the card for too long, because it may hurt you at a show like this in Yokohama, where you're trying to draw a good size crowd. So to me, not my preference as to sort of the Julia path back to the top of the mountain in Stardom, but I see it from just sort of a roster construction point that they need her as a number and as one of their big, reliable, top of the card people.
Yeah, there's two different ways to look at it. On one hand, I don't think they're really nailing the whole story here of like Julia suffering this big, humiliating defeat. I think the idea of shaving your head is supposed to be a humiliation. And then having to overcome that and, learning something new in the process in a way that enables her to become champion again and be on top in a different way that she wasn't before. And I'm not sure that they're telling that story at all, really. It's like more of the story of, it's important that it's also the story of Tom overcoming Julia after losing to her several times. And they continue to tell that story, but they don't really seem to be telling us, and maybe we'll see it, as we see Julia climb back towards title contention. Maybe we'll see, how this has changed her or how this has changed her motivation. But that's definitely not clear in any way at this point. So I think they're struggling to thread that needle. On the other hand, as you said, there was a question about what do we think about this main eventing the show. And it's like, look, if you can put Julia in main events, and it almost doesn't matter. She's the big star, and you can sell tickets, especially a title match and a 2-versus-2 match. You can sell tickets to see Julia. So I think it's a pretty fine way of using her. Now, you might say, okay, but you got these 2 other title matches, which we'll get to, and shouldn't one of those be the main event? And I think, yes, yes, they should be. I don't know that Julia coming off of this humiliating defeat in a tag title match should be the main event over those other 2. But clearly, Stardom and Bushiroad see Julia as their big star going forward, and they are going to do everything they can to highlight her above everyone else in this company.
Well, and I think also a lot of this depends on the outcome of the outcome of this match. And the question is, it's a different story, and I guess it's a different set of circumstances. If Julia, and Shiri challenge for the tag titles, and let's say they lose, then you could say, oh, that's a continuation of the story. You could say, well, Micah and Himika sort of called them out at one of the recent shows. And you could say, oh, she lost again because she's not in the mindset, she's still affected by this, which, of course, it's a different story if Julia and Shuri win. Then the question really becomes, well, now there isn't a story because Julia, I understand that tag titles are not the top titles in Stardom, but they're still a title with someone else, Shuri, who is a fairly prominent part of this roster. Then the story is either not there, or you've got to tell a different story where Julia has bounced back, very quickly from this sort of defining defeat at one of your biggest shows that you've ever done. So I will be interested to see what the outcome of the match is, sort of from that booking perspective, to see whether they are interested in telling that story of Julia sort of having to reprove herself, or if that really wasn't their intention and they just need her at the top of the cards and they just want to get her back in a prominent position.
Yeah, to me, the most likely outcome is that Julia just wins this and they just have her back in like a drawing position. And, now she's got a title again and they go about it that way. But I tend to agree with you. At least I think that's what you're saying, that's probably not the best way to go for like telling a satisfying pro wrestling story.
Well, and it has a lot of sort of similarities with the Suzu Suzuki story in Ice Ribbon, and in terms of someone who's a champion for a long time and manages to hold the title for a while, and then loses, and then obviously Suzu didn't, it was just the title. But there's still the question of, you've lost your title. What is the path forward for this character, for this person? And, in Ice Ribbon, they've given Suzu this sort of hardcore match series, which is sort of, a way to get some interesting matches in, but is also a way to sort of expand this character of, she's lost and now she's going to branch out into something new to try and improve herself or try and, face down demons, whatever the story would be. Whereas if this, it's sort of, you lost your hair, you're like, I got to prove myself again. And here you are back in a title match, a month later, really, at your next big show, a month and a day. Later at your big show. So it's two different approaches. I much prefer the sort of story-based approach of Ice Ribbon, but we'll see what happens with this Stardom stuff.
And we'll have the red belt match with Utami Hayashishita defending against B. Priestley. I guess we should briefly mention that B. Priestley was involved in a big angle on the New Japan what's it called? What's the cup? It's called the New Japan Cup, right?
Yeah, the New Japan Cup. I thought you were searching for the word show.
No, I was searching for what the cup was.
Yeah, the New Japan Cup.
I was like, the New Japan show, the something cup. Yeah. New Japan Cup final. Will Ospreay, I think, won. I don't watch New Japan, but I think won, and then turned on B. Priestley. Like said, he didn't need anything except the IWGP heavyweight title. So he gave B an os cutter, and that happened. So, and then I guess their next big show is the same day as this show, right?
Yeah, on the 4th. Yeah.
Right. So anyway, don't know where that's going, but B. Priestley was involved in that, so I thought I'd mention it. B is just like when she was the red belt champion before, is just so strongly booked. She just beats everyone. It's weird because I understand, and whether it's anybody's preference or not, if she's being featured on New Japan and she's walking around with your Stardom title, maybe that gets more eyeballs on Stardom. It would be hard to argue against that. But I don't know if this was a write-off or if it's a ruse and she's going to come back and do something to help Ospreay win the title match. But I don't know. It feels like, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if she wins, basically. It seems weird because Utami's just gotten this big win. She's her title reign is just kind of starting to come into its own. So I definitely would not have her lose at this point. But there may be a business argument for it.
Yeah, I think, B, looking at her results now last night, I think she did lose. I think she lost in a match to the Cosmic Angels, a tag match to the Cosmic Angels, and then attacked Utami in her match, which was the next match, if I read the results correctly. But really, B has beaten really a number of very strongly booked people in this promotion over the last few weeks. And we talked about on the last show, or maybe the show before, this idea of, they're doing all these time limit draws, which are still happening. I think they had 2 this weekend. And, the case of, they're trying to build people for the big shows, and they don't want people losing all the time. So they're booking these time limit draws. But it clearly shows here where B has a title match coming up, and they have booked her very strong, beating a lot of very strong names. So it's possible for them to really flip that switch when they need. And so that argument for, here's why they're doing time limit draws. Also, we've now gotten past the big Budokan show, and the time limit draws have continued, which is another thing. But I just think when they want to book someone strong, when they need to book someone strong, they are more than capable of doing it. In terms of the results, I think it would be a big mistake to have B win. For me, no matter what happens with any of that New Japan stuff, I don't think relying on, B Priestley to walk out, if she still is involved, depending on her to walk out with the title and have people go, B Priestley has a title, I should check out Stardom. I think that that's sort of counting on fool's gold. B has been there now for a number of months, and there really is not, or there hadn't been until today, a lot of really talk about her involvement at all. She usually would just come out with Will sort of by his side, and that would really be the totality of it. So I don't know that her coming back with the title and saying, oh, now I'm the red belt champion really does all that much. I think Utami's still in the development part of her reign. So I think taking it off her would be a mistake. And I think putting it on B would also not be a wise decision. So I could see it happening. Anything's possible. But if it were me, I would keep it on Utami 100%.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. But I've learned, now it's a different regime, but I've learned with this company to never doubt their interest in B Priestley winning matches you would not expect her to win. So, and I'm not a huge B hater. Honestly, I think she's pretty good and certainly much better than most people give her credit for in ring. But I do not think the world is crying out for B Priestley title reign. I certainly think Utami is just starting to come into shape here. And so I would keep going with this and see if you can make a really big star out of her. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think having her lose the title would cut the legs out from underneath her in terms of this reign. And I'm not sure where you would go with her as you're trying to sort of pump her into this, another star for the top of the card. I think that would really take her out of that position, and you would probably have to work her back up to that if she's going to lose the title here.
I agree. And B has beaten Utami when B was red belt champion before. So good time for Utami to beat her, I would say. Next up is the white belt match, the Wonder of Stardom Championship. Tom getting her first defense against Natsupoi.
Yeah, this was interesting. I don't know that I'm really crazy about Natsupoi winning the high-speed title and then immediately challenging for a different title. It just is a weird thing to me. I know I'm in the minority on that. I would have preferred to see her get at least a couple defenses, really establish her. With that belt, before Budokan happened, she was really the huge loss post in Stardom. She lost many, many times. She wins the high speed, and now she pins Tom, and she's getting a white belt. It just seems very up and down to me. She was sort of the loss post of DDM. Now she has a title. Now she wins one match, and she's challenging for another title. But again, it's like the Julia situation where they're doing a lot of big shows and they need constant challengers for these big matches. Tom needs a first opponent that will deliver a good match, which I know Natsupoi will, that she can beat easily and not really send that person spiraling back down the card, which is definitely Natsupoi. So I think it boils down to the same thing with Julia, where just the roster construction doesn't allow them for these perfect situations in terms of challengers, monthly challengers for these big titles.
Yes, I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think Natsupoi's a fine challenger. It doesn't bother me. It's a good little match, and hopefully get Tom started off strongly on this run. So should be fun. And Natsupoi, she's not very consistent, but she's had some really great matches, primarily with Miyu Yamashita, but certainly capable of pulling out a really good match here.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the match quality. I think it will be very good. and it will be a good, as I said, it's a solid person for Tom to beat convincingly that, a win over them will make Tom look good and won't affect Natsupoi too much. And Natsupoi will have that first, I would think would have that first high-speed win over Starlight Kid, which is happening a few days prior. So that will help her.
All right. And then we have the big, let's see, what did they say on the Stardom website? The Full War Illumination match. I love that. Stars versus Oedo Tai, 5 versus 5 elimination match. The loser must switch factions. So I assume this is like the unit disband match they had when Jungle Assault Nation was disbanded. And basically if you eliminate someone, then you get to leave the match and the other people remain.
Oh, yes. You mean in terms of the rule set of the match? Yeah.
Yeah. So, I was having a conversation with some folks about it's kind of weird for the last person in the match to lose. And it's in this case, it's that you haven't been able to score a fall or to eliminate someone in some way. So it makes some sense, I think. It is like a strange use of this, or even of just like a normal match type. But I think it works.
Yeah, and they did do it a while back when Tom switched out of Oedo Tai. I think that was the last time they had this stipulation in terms of switching factions. So they have done it. They have done it before, and to, I think, I would say pretty good success with Tom switching out of Oedo Tai. So hopefully they have, another success here.
Yes. So I'm not exactly sure who all's in this match, looking on the website of the card. So the Stars team is Mayu Iwatani, Starlight Kid, Saya Ida, Hanan, and Gokigen Death. So I'm all there on that. The Oedo Tai team is Natsuko Tora, Saki Kashima, Konami, and then I think Ruaka and Hina. You think that's right?
Yes, well, definitely Ruaka. It's the question of who's the fifth, and I think it is Hina because Rina and Hina just came back.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't know. This can go a few ways, I guess. It'll be disappointing if it's like Hanan loses and so she goes over to Oedo Tai. But it's Mayu's not going to Oedo Tai, right?
Well, I was going to say, the story has been all these stars people. I'm not going to argue that, it's definitely going to be Mayu. I think that would certainly be interesting. And as you say, a little bit more interesting than sort of swapping these lower level people where it's sort of interesting, but you're like, okay, well, they're sort of, pin eaters or things like that. And you're just sort of swapping them from one place to the other. I think Maya would certainly be the most interesting switch. I would imagine if I had to bet, if I were putting money on it, it would be someone like Gokigen Death switching to Oedo Tai, someone of that stature. And I think that Gokigen Death would be sort of interesting in Oedo Tai. I would hope it wouldn't be, someone like Hanan, you're like, oh, could switch, but, I would like to see some of these lower card wrestlers stay on the star side, get a chance to work that way. We just had Ruaka switch over to Oedo Tai. So to me, I just hope it's someone who puts a little interest, especially in Oedo Tai, a unit that has gotten a little bit better in the recent weeks, but still, in my mind, struggles. They had a DQ loss last night at the show, so still sort of struggling with that perception that we've had, and I know a lot of people have had for a little while, of this sort of team of cheaters that doesn't really care if they win, and the fans have sort of disconnected with them a little, especially compared to, Oedo Tai at its height, which was very popular. So I'm just hoping for someone whoever switches to whatever side, I hope it's someone who can really give a lot of juice to whatever side, if they're going from stars to Oedo Tai or Oedo Tai to stars.
It sucks because these are like the two units right now that need more juice, I think. And so like swapping people out between these two really doesn't help that problem. And certainly like for Oedo Tai, they need like a more of a leader, who is more interesting. And yeah, unless it's Mayu Iwatani, they're not going to get it out of this bunch. So yeah, I don't know. I'm somewhat interested, but it just feels like this is not going to be satisfying however it ends.
Yeah, unless they move. I mean, I guess they could try and move like Starlight Kid and see if they can, sort of boost her up a little bit more. Currently, she doesn't scream to me, switching to Oedo Tai and becoming the leader. But maybe you have some story where this is sort of the next step in her evolution where she switches to Oedo Tai and she becomes that leader somehow through whatever story you have or whatever character change. But yeah, I think I agree with you that these are sort of the two factions that need the most help, and one of them will be gaining help at the expense of the other. So not ideal. Not really an ideal format for you would ideally want to strengthen both of them at the same time.
And then we have in the Unagi Sayaka trial series, another match.
An extra
match. The 8th match of the 7-match trial series. Unagi Sayaka versus Sayaka Mitani, who has also been booked very strongly of late.
Yeah, and the trial series was, fairly successful. So it makes sense to me that they're sort of adding this extra match here at the end, lower on this card. I would imagine to get Saya on the big show and reestablish her with a win on a big show after she lost the red belt title match at Budokan. But I'm looking forward to this. I've actually really enjoyed, over the last few shows, watching the Stardom shows, have really enjoyed the Cosmic Angel stuff. I think it's fun. I think they're working hard, trying to get better. Obviously, they're not the top rung of the Stardom roster in terms of work rate, but I think that they're improving and they're a really fun team to watch. So I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, I might have to sign up for the old iSakura gimmick to watch this show, because this is airing live on Samurai, right?
It is airing live on Samurai, so yes, you should be. Yes, I will certainly be doing that, watching it on Samurai.
Yes. Okay. Next up, now the wrestler who just is in the second match of the big shows, Momo Watanabe versus Mina Shirakawa. By the way, it's Momo Watanabe's birthday today, Taylor. Should be a national holiday.
A national holiday in Japan or in America?
In America, of course.
Okay, great.
It should be a dual national holiday.
It should be a worldwide holiday.
Now that's a great idea. I really like where you're thinking, Taylor. I've got my Momo hoodie on today in celebration of her birthday. So happy birthday to Momo, who I'm sure is listening.
Oh, I'm sure. And Aaron, do you think that she will celebrate her birthday with a big win at this big show?
She fucking better. That's all I know. She needs a win. Coming off the loss to Nanai Takahashi. Yeah, she should win. Hopefully she does.
Yeah, hopefully she does. Although, I don't know, maybe they have, Mina win coming back off the broken nose. And at this point, I think anything's possible with Momo Watanabe. I have really no idea what they're doing with her, especially post Budokan, where she had the sort of big match with Nanai and now has, question mark. I guess at this point she could be the artist of Stardom title holder. But other than that, not too much happening with Momo.
We got to get Momo to AEW, IMO.
I mean, that would be great. She's a great wrestler. That would be good for me. I'm pro more good wrestlers in AEW.
Me too. Yeah, certainly on the women's side, I would love that. Also, I would just like to see Hikaru Shida, her friend, Jaguars cheerleader Keiko Honda, and Momo hanging out. I think that would be very wholesome content. And
Ryu Mizunami now, who's there.
That's right. What do you think's going on with Mizunami? You think she's just sticking around in America for a while?
Yeah, I think she's. I think she's staying. I don't think she had. I think the original plan was she was going to come before all the COVID stuff hit, and then obviously that all happened. So she figured she'd just hang around and do shows for SEAdLINNG and stuff like that. But I think she's probably going to be there, at least semi-permanently, if not really permanently. So, I would expect to see more of her. She was in the post-match video of the Britt Rosa match, so she is still there having lunch with Shida. So yeah, I expect to see her stick around, and I think she's a good piece for that division in terms of someone who doesn't need to be constantly challenging for a title, can lose to people, can beat people. So I mean, I think a really good pickup for AEW to keep her around.
And then the first match on the card is a three-way match, and it involves Azumi and Lady C. So an interesting little matchup here.
Yeah, three-way, I think designed to get Azumi a win after losing the high-speed title at the last big show. So, a standard Stardom opening match, getting someone who needs a win in the first match.
All right, so this looks like a pretty good show to me. I'm interested in it. Certainly going to watch it on Samurai. So, yeah, not a bad show they've put together.
Yeah, nice show. It'll be interesting to see. Now we will have a direct comparison for this show and their last Yokohama show to compare to see attendance-wise, to see if the crowds are, growing or, with Julie at the top of the card, just to see what's going on. But I think a fun show, at 4 good matches at the top, or at least 4 interesting matches I'm interested in. Interested to see the results, especially that Oedo Tai Stars match and the tag title match in the main event. So I'm looking forward to it as well.
All right, well, what else is coming up over the next couple of weeks?
So a lot of other stuff coming up. SEAdLINNG has a show on April 2nd, which will be celebrating Arisa Nakajima's birthday, which is April 6th. They just announced the main event of that show today. Arisa Nakajima, Nagisa Nosaki, and Hanako Nakamori against Hiroyo Matsumoto, Makoto, and Dash Chizako. So that should be a fun match. Looking forward to that. Oz has a big Korakuen Hall show coming up. They've been building to this show for a while. The 2 big matches, the 2 big title matches, Mayumi Ozaki going up against Sonoko Kato, who won that tournament, or that little, the tag match that turned into the singles match, the Magic 10. And then the tag title match will be Kakeru Sekiguchi and Kaho Kobayashi against Kaori Yonayama and the returning Yu. So Yu returning from injury, good to see her back and here in the title picture. Tokyo Joshi has an interesting 2 weeks coming up. They have a show on the 27th, which will have no Maki Itoh. Maki Itoh held a little press conference when she returned from Japan. She is still in quarantine, so she will not be on that March 27th show. On April 1st, Tokyo Joshi trying out a new format, Tokyo Joshi Inspiration, which are going to be shorter shows, around 1 hour, with only a handful of matches. This one has 3 matches: Mizuki versus Miyu Watanabe, Rika Tatsumi versus Raku, and in the main event, an interesting match, Akari Noah against Rina Yamashita in a hardcore match. Aaron, how do you feel about these? This idea of these shorter shows with only a handful of matches? I know that you're a short show kind of guy.
Yeah, I love it. No show should be over 2 hours, and 1 hour is even better. Absolutely fascinated to see Hikari Noah versus Rina Yamashita. Yamashita doesn't quite fit what I would normally think of as a Tokyo Joshi Pro wrestler. So very fun.
Yeah, and then Tokyo Joshi has a show on April 3rd, and on April 4th, they are doing a women-only show. So I really like seeing Tokyo Joshi trying these new things, trying new show formats, trying to get women into their shows. I think that's an important thing to increase the Joshi fandom, which I think is something that we all hope for. You know, the more fans of Joshi there are, the more Joshi we get. So it's a win-win for everyone. Ice Ribbon also has a Korakuen coming up on March 27th. A lot of big matches. The Triangle Ribbon will be defended. Ram Kaichou against Uno Matsuya and Ibuki Hoshi. Risa Sera, Akane Fujita, and Miko Aono against Cherry, Teihonma, and Thekla. That's a fun match. Suzu Suzuki will have her second match in her 7-match hardcore series that we were just talking about against Takashi Sasaki from Freedoms. Hiroyo Matsumoto and Kurumi Hiragi against Hamiko Hoshi and Mochi Miyagi. And finally, in the main event for the Ice Infinity title, Tsukasa Fujimoto against Maya Yukihei. That should be an excellent match. Two of the best wrestlers, not only in Ice Ribbon, but in all of Joshi. Tsukasa Fujimoto already having a great year, a number of great matches, highlighted by that title win against Suzu Suzuki earlier in the year. So I'm really looking forward to that one. Diana will be doing a show on March 28th, which will be produced by ASUKA. Madeline versus Kikutaro. Kikutaro returning after his very infamous run in Stardom, in the Stardom Rumble. And then the main event, Asuka and Ayako Sato against Hagane Shino and Amy Miura, who works for Actress Girls but has been doing a lot for Diana and has been doing very well. She was in that tag match today against Luminous. That was a fun match. Another Korakuen, all these Korakuens happening. On April 4th, Actress Girls has a Korakuen. Miyuki Takase against Saki. That is for the Actress Girls title. Miyuki Takase, the current champion. And Tei Hanma and Maika Ozaki against Mari and Hikaru Shimizu, also on that show. Marvelous has a show on March 30th. The big news, they are switching pay-per-view providers. They are going to Zyko. Zyko did the Assemble pay-per-views, also has done some Sendai Girls pay-per-views. Very easy to use for international customers. So I highly recommend checking that out. They've been running, obviously, the road to the Gaea reunion show. They've been doing the Hibiki storyline, and are now on an easier platform for international viewers. So I highly recommend checking that show out. Chikayo Nagashima will be producing her own show for her 25th anniversary. A really fun-looking show. The main event, Kaoru, Chikayo, Megumi Yabushita, and Dash Chizako will go against Yuki Miyazaki, Hanako Nakamori, Asuka, and an X, a mystery X. Another fun match, a 4-way match, Mio Momono, Mei Hoshizuki, Mei Saruga, and Miyuki Takase. That one should be really fun. And Nagashima is going up against Chigusa Nagayo in a 5-minute exhibition match. They haven't said whether this show will be making air, but everyone keep your fingers crossed that it does, because it looks like a really fun matchup, or group of matchups, I should say. And then Wave on the 24th of March will be debuting their newest trainee, Shizuku Tsukada, will go up against Yumi Oka in an exhibition match, 5-minute exhibition match. But good to see Wave with a new trainee coming out as they continue to sort of rebuild that roster and that promotion. On April 1st, there is a Wave title match, Sakura Hirota against Sonoko Kato. And on the 3rd, they have a tag title match as Sakura Hirota and Yuki Miyazaki will challenge the champions Rin Katakura and Itsuki Aoki for the tag title. So very possible that Hirota may end up as a double wave champion if she manages to retain the Regina de Wave a few days earlier. And Choco Pro, this coming weekend, the 27th and 28th, have their 2-day Choco Pro 100 celebration. They just announced recently that will feature Kaori Yoneyama against Yuna Mizumori for the Pure J title that Yoneyama just won. And Yoneyama, I believe, has announced that any singles match she has moving forward will be for that title. So that will be an interesting match on what should be a fun pair of shows, a big celebration for Choco Pro reaching show 100.
All right. Well, I don't know why I do this, but I always like to look after you've done this of what we're going to be talking about on the next show. But certainly, Stardom will be a big one. And then, there's a bunch of Korakuens, so I guess it depends on what we can see by then out of Oz and Ice Ribbon and everything else that's happening. So lots to talk about next time.
Yes, it will be a chock-full show. I'm hoping that Ice Ribbon will make tape. Hopefully, maybe it will be on their Kips Fun streaming service again, because that was a great service. But yes, we'll have plenty to talk about next show.
All right. Well, we've also taken some listener questions. We've got a lot of them, but we'll see how many we can get through here. So first up now, has Velkej ever told us if that's how his name's actually pronounced? I think that's what I always say.
I guess I should ask it. I guess I should ask it some point.
If I'm fucking that up, bud, just let me know, and I will stop doing that.
Yeah, just add us. Add us on Twitter, at JBombAudio.
Yeah, let us know if we can pronounce your name better. Who is the best SEAdLINNG rookie, and why is it Riko Kaiju?
I do think it is Riko Kaiju. There's only two options. So that's not, I guess, a wild take. I think that she's been very good. Obviously, they have gotten behind her, putting her in this Selfish Strawberries storyline with Asuka and Makoto. I think that she has developed even a little bit in terms of skills in ring, has developed even a little bit faster than Hinori Hana, who I think has done very well, but still to me feels in ring wise occasionally still like, okay, you're, a rookie. You've had, about a year considering the time off and everything like that. You've had about a year in the ring, so you're still young. But I think Riko has gotten very good, pretty fast for me. So Riko would certainly be my vote.
Yeah, I think that's the reasonable take. And by the way, we took some of these questions on Twitter. I think we also Taylor, I think, posted it in the VOW Discord in the JBA channel. I'm not in that Discord.
Yes, in the JBA and the Joshi channel. There's two. Okay. If you're not in there, you can go in there into the VOW Discord and talk about Joshi in two different places.
How exciting. Then we had from Ed Carden thoughts on the wildly varying reception Maki Itoh has gotten working in the U.S. Has she gotten a wildly varying reception?
Well, I think she's gotten a varying reception in that many people like her and many people think that she's, the end of wrestling as we know it. So I do think I just
mostly ignore those people, so it hasn't really reached me that much.
Yeah, I just see them occasionally and I just sort of scroll by it, but I do know it is happening. And, my thoughts on it are, and this is sort of a more general thought that, when you think about you think about an American wrestling company, if they were to bring in, I don't know, someone from some Japanese men's company, I guess I would say, that isn't the best, not an off the charts in-ring worker, I guess I would think like Antonio Honda or something. Just for an example, even though I do like Honda, that if people didn't like him, they would say, oh, this guy, we don't like him. And it would sort of be this very siloed response. But it feels like when people don't like one joshi wrestler, the thought is, oh, well, this proves to me that all of joshi wrestlers are this. As if one single person represents the entirety of this style of wrestling, which if you watch it, it's very varied. You think about all the different companies. I mean, Stardom and Tokyo Joshi and, Oz Academy couldn't be really more different in terms of working style and wrestlers and things like that. So that's the thing that I sort of hook onto most, because it just feels like you get one example of this. And I think anyone listening to this would probably agree that Maki Itoh is not she's not the end all be all of wrestlers in ring. And a lot of people like her, and a lot of people have learned to like her over a period of time in Tokyo Joshi, where you learn about her as a character and you have storylines where you can really get invested in her, other than her being thrown out and going, okay, you have to go out there and have a 4-star match, or people are going to say, oh, well, why don't we, get more so-and-so on the show who could have better matches. So, that's the thing that sort of annoys me more broadly than just with Maki Itoh. But I think part of that is now people see one match and they go, well, this better blow me away, or I'm going to be totally out on this immediately.
Yeah, I think you've said it very well. There's also this like weird idea that I don't, maybe there's people saying this, I don't know, but there was like this weird backlash to an apparent take that Maki is like excellent in ring or something, which I mean, I don't know of anybody who says that. I mean, she's great as like a total package, as a performer, which of course there's a lot more to wrestling than just, what you do as far as like wrestling moves between the bells. But, so there was some backlash to that, but it's like, to me, if you watch Maki Itoh and don't come away, you don't have to like her as a wrestler, you don't have to like her as a character. But if you don't come away with thinking like, oh, this person has something, like this is somebody who can be a star, can be someone who's really over, then the only options are that you are so lost as to not be worth listening to, or there's some blockage that you have based on some preconceived notion that you just cannot discard, which also puts you in the category of not being worth listening to. But it's like you have the ability to overcome that. So I hope that people who have come down on the side of not being in on Maki Itoh realize that they're wrong and get rid of whatever it is that is causing them to think that way. Because there are plenty of wrestlers that I don't like, that I don't enjoy watching, but that you just can't help but understand that they are good at what they do. And honestly, I thought AEW did a pretty good job contextualizing Maki Itoh and like getting her character over to a new audience. I thought they did a good job with that. They obviously are into Maki Itoh and think has something, and set it up presumably that they intend on using her more in the future. So I thought she was presented well. I thought she did well in the matches that she had, and I just think there's something wrong with you if you don't realize that she has something, that she is a potential very over wrestler in the United States.
Yeah, and if you're expecting, oh, well, every person who ever gets hyped is going to come in here and deliver the greatest matches I've ever seen, most of the time you're probably going to be disappointed, because that's not the way, especially in such a short window of time. I mean, you're saying, even Maki Itoh, who came over, she got her match in the tournament. She was in the 6-person tag, and then she had 2 matches she had 3 matches in AEW. So that's 5 matches And the whole thing is like, well, now I've seen the whole thing. And it's like, well, you haven't really seen the whole thing. You've only seen 5 total matches of this person, in a different scenario. She's not in the country. She's not in the company she usually works for. That's tough to do in, a number of matches. We think about the AEW roster. There's a number of people who I think are very good who haven't done that in many, I think of someone like Miro, who I really like. I think he's really good, but I don't think he's really settled in, and he's had many more matches than Maki Itoh's had. But I'm not sitting here writing him off going, well, this guy, he's never going to be any good, and I never want to see him again on my TV screen. So it's tough. It's tough all around.
Well, you're not an insane person also, so you got that going for you. Next up, the Bebbler asks, who should win the AAW title?
Yeah, so this is a title that was the Gaea title. And with the Gaea reunion show coming back, it is being revived. It will be a Sendai Girls versus Marvelous singles match. Marvelous has said if their representative wins it, that they will defend it as a title. And Sendai Girls has said if they win it, they will put it in a case for display in their dojo. So clearly everyone rooting for a Marvelous representative to win the title. To me, I think really the two options are either Rin Katakura or Mio Momono, who I think are with Takumi Iroha out, who I think would be the obvious choice if she were healthy. I think those are really the two strong Marvelous choices on their side in terms of people who have made a connection with the audience. Rin was in the AEW tournament as well. Both very talented wrestlers that have connection with that audience, and I think would be good representatives to hold that title.
All right, and then we have Tim Dog asking, if you could take any current wrestlers and put them in another era, who would you take, what time period, what promotion, and what matchups do you think would be interesting? For me, when I'm thinking about like eras and, moving people back into time, it only makes sense to me to send them back to a time when joshi was the hottest shit going. I want to see, I look at like my big stars, if we're talking about, they have to be current joshi wrestlers. So, Mayu and Julia, some of the biggest stars of the current joshi scene. Of course, you could also think about like Nanai or Arisa. But I want to take and put them in All Japan Women, and I want to see them in front of big, huge crowds when everybody's going crazy. The level of matches is out of this world. How would they fare? And just getting to see their star power appreciated by much bigger crowds than what we get today.
Yeah, that's the sort of obvious, that was the first thing I also thought of. I thought of Asuka. You sort of just think of the default is you think of who are the wrestlers you like. And as you said, you then say, well, when were there the biggest group of good wrestlers for them to face? And so my thought was Asuka again in All Japan Women. Asuka, again, someone like Manami Toyota, I think would be really great. I think they sort of, their styles would match. They're not exactly the same, but Toyota had that sort of daredevil, who cares what happens to my body style that I think would go well with a lot of what Asuka does. I think someone like Yoshiko would be interesting in a, sort of tougher promotion like Arceon would be sort of interesting, mixing it up with, that era of Aja Kong and, the people that they had in that company, I think would be really fun. So yeah, I think it's sort of, it feels a little bit like a cop-out, but you're like, who are the wrestlers I really like and I think are really good, and put them in an era where, there are other good wrestlers who you haven't seen them wrestle against and see them face off. I'd love to see Arisa Nakajima go back to that All Japan era, because I think she has sort of that style of, tough working style. You hit me, I'm going to hit you back even harder, and that sort of thing. So those would be my picks.
All right, next up, would you rather watch a promotion with a working style you love, but booking that isn't the greatest? And this is also from Tim Dog, who says that would be Stardom for him. Or a promotion that has a working style that you think is okay, but has great booking. And again, for Tim, that is how he views TJPW. What are your thoughts on that one?
This is a tough one because, of course, the answer is you'd love to see a working style you like with good booking.
Yeah.
That's my cop-out answer. No. But
although really doesn't like, I'm not sure that exists in the current scene for me.
Yeah, I don't know that there is a promotion that has put everything together and I think, okay, this is clicking on all. But that's a hard thing to do because it requires a lot of different things. But to answer Tim's question, my opinion always is I always value a match in which I am invested in a story over one in which there isn't a story, maybe purposefully, or maybe it's not a greatly built story. Like I'm thinking of tournaments. Like a lot of people really love tournaments like the G1. People go, oh, the G1, it's the best part of the year. I often really get burnt out by tournaments like that because there's a lot of very good matches, but really the booking is just, well, I'm just trying to win this match, which isn't a great story for me to hook into. So a lot of times at the end of the year, the matches I value most are the ones that include the story. Now, a lot of those include a story and are great in-ring, have great in-ring work. So I think that I would rather have a working style that I think is okay because I think great booking can elevate okay wrestling in a way that if you have booking that isn't the greatest, or maybe it's bad booking, even if you work a great in-ring style, but the booking is bad, oftentimes that's a harder wall to jump over than, okay, the working style isn't great, but you're really invested in the story because you're more willing to sort of let things go because you're invested in what's happening in the ring.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's any real, I mean, for me, obviously this is very subjective. So yeah, that's basically exactly how I feel. Although, I was going to say this earlier, we were talking about Sendai Girls. I mean, I used to watch every Sendai Girls show that made tape just because it was guaranteed to have like a really excellent main event, even though the booking is almost always nonsensical. But generally, if you are really tied into something and like really invested in it, you're going to like the match better than the person who has no clue of the context. So, I mean, wrestling is about the emotions that it makes you feel, whether those are like, emotions make you cry, or just like I was saying earlier, just like something goofy that happens in a match and it makes you joyful. So, to me, it's like, yeah, as long as the booking is good and we get good stories I can sink my teeth into, then the matches aren't as important. It's like a big problem with, because obviously I do an AEW podcast. A big problem with AEW, I think, is that they will start a lot of shows with 20-minute matches that are cold. And it's like, I don't give a fuck about this. Like, I have no interest in this match. How do you expect me to pay attention to a 20-minute match that with a commercial break that has like no build to it, that I like have no reason to care about it? So I'm always going to take the thing I can be invested in more. All right. What are your thoughts about the tag team scene in Stardom? This is from Arametha. Again, pronunciation, not sure about.
I mean, I think my thoughts about the tag team scene in Stardom are largely my thoughts that I said about the other sort of title scenes, which is that I think that this roster just is not of the size right now for the number of shows they want to run with the number of big shows that they do, and they need these title matches. I don't know that there's really, like, I don't think of the tag team scene in Stardom and think of, that great tag team X. I can't even name really. It just sort of seems like, well, we have two people who they aren't really involved in a singles match right now. So put them together, they'll challenge or they'll win the titles. There really aren't any all that established teams that you think of. Oh, this is I think of them as a tag team. And I think part of that, again, comes down to the construction of the roster where they can't have, these permanent tag teams because they need a lot of people in the single scene as well as in the tag scene.
Yeah, and it feels like in this current scene, they haven't. I mean, the tag titles are generally pretty lowly valued in Stardom. It's like, I think like Maika and Himeka is a great team to build the division around and really to let spread their wings as a tag team, because neither of them is going to be focused on in as a singles very much right now. But they don't seem to have much interest in really doing that. And it's hard to build several different divisions and stories at a time. So, it's pretty much every promotion struggles with this, where there's like some division that they just don't really pay much attention to. And I think the tag division is one of those for Stardom.
Yeah, it's just, as you said, the title isn't pushed. It's main eventing this 4-4 show, but it isn't pushed as, an end-all, be-all title. So I don't think that that's their biggest, emergency. It's not like they need a bunch of teams tomorrow, but it just, when you think of, tag team scene, and you often think of different promotions, maybe a couple established teams jump to your mind, where in Stardom, they don't. And I think Himeka and Maika are a good duo to have the titles. I don't know that they'll elevate the titles, but they certainly are a very good team. They can face off against a number of different opponents. So, I think it's good. I just think it's not where the focus is, and that's, just where the company is.
Who has the better dancing, Arisa and Nanai, or Honorihana and Riko Kaiju? This is from the White Dragon herself, Rika Tatsumi, in the Discord.
Although could mean, I thought it meant Riko Kawahata, because they were teamed. But then I thought that would be an obvious answer, because I would never vote against someone from Actress Girls. And there was a GIF going around of Riko's arms flying all around as they were doing that dance before their match, which looked really wild and really cool. So I would vote for them. If it was Honori and Riko Kaiju, I would probably vote for Arisa and Nanai in that case. But no, with Kawahata, I have to vote, of course, for the Actress Girls wrestlers or wrestler.
And that makes sense to me. Speaking of the White Dragon, Snack is God on Twitter asks, what do you think of Rika Tatsumi's title win? Why do you think they didn't put the title on Mizuki, who won the Princess Cup twice in a row? I would say that we covered this in depth on the show after Rika won the title, but we can certainly give our spark notes of our thoughts here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was an interesting title win. It certainly was surprising. I don't really, and this is not a critique, I don't really clearly see the Tokyo Joshi booking. Like, I don't look at it and go, oh, of course, this is going very obviously from point A to point B to point C. Now, as I said, that isn't a critique. It just isn't a promotion where I'm sitting here going, okay, they're going to build X person up to this level and that person, like in Stardom, where obviously the sort of future plan is Julia gets built back up and probably eventually faces off against Utami or whoever's holding the red belt to get her to, that's a sort of obvious future point to get to, where I don't really see that many points in Tokyo Joshi. But, I think the Tatsumi title win was good. I always like being surprised at a result. And she had that match against Miyu Watanabe at the Korakuen, which was a lot of fun. So overall, I think it's been good. I'm not too clear on the booking, but that's perfectly fine for me. I'm willing to, go along for the ride.
Yeah, I mean, I think Mizuki is going to be the champion eventually. It only makes sense. Didn't expect Tatsumi to win, of course, but I think she has exceeded expectations so far. When she won, I was like, I'm not really sure how this is going to go, but I was very high on the Miyu Watanabe match, and I'm enjoying the reign so far. So we'll see where it goes. But I think Mizuki will get there. And, from our understanding of her popularity, it's not that she really needs the title. So it's an easy way to elevate other people instead. Does Maki Itoh have an actual chance of winning the belt? I assume they mean the Princess of Princess title, now that she is an AEW, quote unquote, AEW superstar.
Yeah, she is challenging for the title on their next Korakuen, which isn't until the middle of April. So we haven't talked about that too much yet. I mean, as we said, the Rika Tatsumi title win was surprising. I could see Maki winning to sort of capitalize on her momentum. I'll be most interested to see, as Tokyo Joshi starts promoting this match out, to see if they can get any boost from AEW in terms of, obviously not on Dynamite or anything like that, but in terms of social, just to say, hey, check out Maki Itoh on Wrestle Universe. It's obviously very easy to see these shows because they're on Wrestle Universe. But I certainly hope, regardless of whether she wins the title or not, I do hope that people who saw her in AEW and liked her are willing to give Tokyo Joshi a chance, whether or not, her winning the title would keep them there, or if they would see the show and get interested regardless of that. I don't know. But I certainly think she has a chance. I think really we're at a point now with Tokyo Joshi where any title challenger, I think, has some chance. I don't think Rika Tatsumi is built up as some, undefeatable champion where she's going to be holding it for, a year, sort of in that Miyu frame where she was really beating a lot of people. So I certainly think it's a possibility.
To me, there's I think, and again, I may not be as keyed in on Tokyo Joshi Pro booking as you said, Taylor, but to me there's a much longer term story of Maki winning the title. I mean, she hasn't even overcome Miyu Yamashita yet. She's lost to Aja Kong several times. I just think there's some hurdles I'd like to see her get over from a character perspective before she wins the title. So I certainly wouldn't do it yet, but yeah, I guess it's a possibility. All right. Do you think, I can't remember if we talked about this last episode, do you think there's a problem of older wrestlers not putting young talent over enough in Joshi?
I don't think this is a problem. I think you look at the sort of quote unquote older wrestlers that are around. We talked about Mako and Sendai Girls, but I think that's a uniquely sort of Sendai Girls issue. And I don't think it's a solely, Mako winning. There's been sort of a lot of booking things in that promotion that I look at and I go, well, I don't know if I would have done that. Stuff with the tag title, people winning the tag title, losing it the next defense, things like that. And I think of the other older wrestlers. Nanae Takahashi certainly wins a lot. She won at the Budokan Stardom show. But a big story of SEAdLINNG just a little while ago was the buildup of Arisa beating her in a hair versus hair match. That was a big moment of her losing. Now you could argue whether the loser of a hair versus hair match gets over more, but that was her building up a story to build someone, quote unquote, younger than her. SEAdLINNG just had the show that we just talked about here, the Korakuen show, where younger talents did win, Hinori Hana picking up a big win. So I don't see it too much as a problem. I think there's always naturally going to be some of these quote-unquote older wrestlers winning, because a lot of times those are the people who are drawing in a lot of the fans for some of these promotions. You think about Oz Academy. I mean, I think a lot of people are coming to see Ozaki, who's been around for a while and is still somewhat of a draw for a lot of people. So I think that issue is, to me, overblown.
Yes, I think you covered it well. I don't really have anything to add to that. The next two questions kind of go together, so I'll read them both. Travis Zick asks, who do you want to see work on a more global level? I list AEW, UK, and the Indies. First of all, I don't want to make anyone go to the UK, for sure. I don't wish that upon anyone. And then Sam Roberts asked, with Yuka Sakazaki and Maki Itoh seeing success in the West, who do you think the next crossover star could be? And I know what you're going to say, Taylor.
Yeah, I don't think you do know what I'm going to say because I'm going to switch it up.
Wow.
I'm going to switch it up a little bit.
Wow, watch him switch it up, folks. Go ahead.
Yeah, here I go. Ready? Well, I'm going to. I will say I'm going to sort of disinclude, the people that were in this AEW tournament because those were people who have sort of already been represented. But I think that Ice Ribbon to me has really been globally sort of underrepresented for a while. Obviously they didn't, for various reasons, they didn't have anyone in the AEW tournament. And I think they have a super talented roster that could really connect with, whether it be, the indies in the US or AEW or something like that. They have a great combination of the sort of character work that I think a lot of people like and that draws a lot of people in when these people debut, along with some really good in-ring talent. I mean, Tsukasa Fujimoto. You think of Suzu Suzuki, I think would connect really well. But even, I'm thinking of like Maika Ozaki would be really good. I think like Ram Kaichou has that sort of interesting look that would draw you in. And I think she's a really fun personality. So I just think Ice Ribbon, I think there might be a larger talk to Ice Ribbon is having a very strong year, but they don't seem to break out on that level of other things like Stardom or Tokyo Joshi or things like that, where I would love to see some of those wrestlers get more opportunities worldwide than just, these Ice Ribbon shows that they're doing very well on.
Well, you've made this tough if we're just knocking out anyone who was in the tournament.
Well, you don't have to. That was just my criteria. And I could say Asuka, but I've talked about Asuka on pretty much every show we've done for the last year. So
I thought for sure you would say Asuka. Mizuki, I think, is one who certainly could be popular on a global scale. And for the record, I was saying I don't wish that anyone has to go wrestle in the UK. I think the UK wrestling scene is cursed. But Mizuki, Takumi Iroha. I know she's out right now, but to me, she has like super big star energy. She has the big star look. I could certainly imagine her being popular internationally. Who else?
I will say, while you think, I do think it's crazy that AEW, maybe they have, but that AEW hasn't brought over Miyu Yamashita yet, because I think that she's someone who would get over immediately. Now, maybe that's in the works, or maybe they've asked and they haven't been able to get her over. But I just think, thinking of it in my head, it would be very easy to bring her over and really get people behind her with her in-ring style, which I think would draw a lot of people in.
I think they're more interested in, like, when it comes to bringing over Japanese women, I think they're more interested in personalities. And I'm not sure that Yamashita would jump off the screen to them as they're like looking for people to bring over.
Yeah, I could see that. But, I think she would be really a no-brainer. And it's something that a lot of people have talked about, even from the very beginning. When, Shoko Nakajima was coming over, people were like, they should be bring in Mayu. So that would be another one of mine.
All right. Well, we're running a little long, so I'm going to try to just hit a couple more of these. If you were making this is from Sam Roberts also, if you were making a 5-person Joshi stable using 5 talents from 5 different promotions, what's your dream lineup? And if you got time, give them a name. I'm not clever enough to come up with a name.
Yeah, I'm not either. I don't even have 5 yet, but I'm going to do it. Ready? On the fly.
Well, I've got 5, so I'll start.
Great.
You can think about it. There's a couple of different ways you could go, but I want a bunch of ass kickers. Okay. So I try to think of the people that kick the most ass, but are in different promotions. Obviously, everybody knows I'm picking Momo Watanabe to be in my stable. because I love her, and she's excellent. I would team her up with Yoshiko from SEAdLINNG, Suzu Suzuki from Ice Ribbon, Dash Chisako from Sendai Girls, and Nagisa Nozaki from Wave. So I got 5 promotions, and I think all these people will beat the shit out of you in the ring, which is what I really value in pro wrestlers.
Well, I think we're going to be very close in terms of the type, but mine would be, here we go, Jungle Kiona from Stardom, Arisa Nakajima from SEAdLINNG, Asuka, who's freelance, Tsukasa Fujimoto from Ice Ribbon, and I'm gonna do a little cheat here, and I'm gonna say Maya Yukihi from Oz Academy, the Oz Academy version of Maya Yukihi. But I think very, very sort of close to yours, sort of take no prisoner style, great in-ring workers. Probably 5 of my favorite in all of the Joshi scene.
Yeah, I probably overlooked the I didn't go straight like Dream, my favorites, as you did, which was probably more in line with the question, and I gave it more of a theme. But that's what I wanted to do, so that's what I did. And I'm going to close it out with this one, I think. Since Bushiroad acquired Stardom, do you think they've developed as they may have been expected to, or maintain as they are? This can be in terms of in-ring, creating new talent, having a different visual presentation, or garnering more international viewership. And my first thing would be that as much as I hear Kadani talk about international viewership, they haven't done a single thing to try to get more international viewership. In fact, I think they've gone backwards on that question, in that it's much harder to it's harder to buy their stuff. There's not an international store anymore. You can do the buy, which is could be difficult for some people, I think. But I think they've done much less outreach to international fans. But as far as overall, I think the in-ring is probably worse than it was, but I think some of that was out of their hands. We've talked a ton about creating new talent. I don't think they've done as good of a job as they had done before. The presentation, I do think, has stepped up. So I think it's a mixed bag. It does seem like they're trying harder to reach out to a wider Japanese audience, which I think is important. And obviously COVID has been a huge challenge in this, so it's really hard to measure. But I do go back and think about, they had those huge Korakuens right after Bushiroad took over. So I feel pretty confident that when all this is over and they can have big shows again, that we'll see some pretty some growth that is consistent, that builds upon itself. But I do think it's been a mixed bag overall.
Yeah, I think there will always be sort of a giant asterisk next to the first year or so of this, because of all the COVID stuff and all the things that happened, during that time where they were away, things that were sort of out of their hands. I do think one thing that they have done is, the sort of word is developed, and I think that they have presented themselves as a bigger company, whether the in-ring stuff or whether the roster matches that, I don't know, but they certainly have, between booking Budokan, between doing these more frequent big shows, the Yokohama show coming up, the couple of shows that they did last year, they have certainly presented themselves front-facing as a bigger company than they were when their sort of big things were, we're running Korakuen more frequently than a lot of Joshi companies. So in that way, I think that they have developed a quote-unquote stronger brand, and I think the sort of outside of the world of Joshi, people are more aware of what they're doing than they were before. But as we've talked about many times on the show, I don't know if the whole package has come together for them in terms of developing more talent, developing, more international viewership and things like that. But they certainly have presented it on its face as a bigger company.
All right. Well, I think that's good. I think we've covered most of the questions. Sorry if we didn't answer all your questions. I'm sure we'll do this again in the coming months. So, reach out to us again. Is there anything else that you want to talk about before we go there?
No, I think we covered it all.
Yes. The famous catchphrase of Taylor's.
The famous, yes.
He said the thing. All right, catch us on Twitter at JBombAudio. I'm at Aaron Like the Car. Taylor's at Taymambo. Make sure you subscribe to the show. Give us a 5-star rating and a review if you use the Apple Podcast app. If you'd like to donate to the show, head over to redcircle.com/shows/jumping-bomb-audio. But that's it for this week, or for this 2 weeks, as we usually do. But we'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.